Tulika Mehrotra, who debuts with her first novel, Delhi Stopover. So let's talk to her. Hi Tulika, welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Congratulations on your first book. Tell us something about it.
It's about the fashion industry. It's about Delhi. It's about the 20s. It's about insecurities, body image. But mostly it's about the fashion industry in Delhi.
Yeah, and you're seeing, looking at the fashion industry through the eyes of Leela.
Yes, Leela Kapoor.
And is this a grim view of the fashion industry, or is it upbeat and positive and hopeful?
It's very realistic, and so that can be taken as grim because there are some darker aspects of the fashion industry. But I see it as a hopeful view, just because the future is so beautiful, and where the fashion industry has come in an astonishingly short time is amazing, frankly.
Tulika, you were born in Delhi, in Lucknow.
In Lucknow.
But do you have many memories of Lucknow?
I was a bit young when we left, but throughout childhood I've gone back a lot, so I do. I remember going, love shopping at Hazratganj, and you know, the chicken embroidery is still all over my wardrobe.
Okay, so you love going ganjing.
Yes.
You've been brought up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a different world altogether from India.
Yeah.
So what was that all about?
What was that all about? It was my upbringing in Chicago. So I was raised in a very American environment, and there were not a lot of other, I guess, people like me at the time that I was growing up. But we had a great connection back to India. We were taking a lot of trips back, and then once I got my fashion design degree, it was a lot of coming back to India as well. So I had the American upbringing, but I had, you know, roots, and my parents were very careful to make sure we didn't lose that.
And you studied finance?
I studied finance as an undergrad degree, and I found it a bit stifling. And then ultimately I was hired into a retailer corporate environment where I worked on the buying side of a corporation where I knew nothing about fashion. And so that was the impetus to really get a fashion degree.
So this decision to go to Milan to study fashion, now was that difficult for your parents? Did your dad say, I'm sending my daughter into the big bad ad world, how will she cope?
Yeah, so they had sent me into the big bad world a year earlier, and it broke World War III into our family. I had studied business in the UK. So that was a huge, huge deal for them to send their firstborn, a daughter, and a huge sort of kind of a chaotic girl. The Milan plan was a little bit easier for them to digest. They could see that I was obviously like searching for my artistic identity, and it was just too prestigious of a school to turn down. So it was much simpler for them to understand. But yeah, it felt like serendipity. Everything just sort of like lined up, the stars aligned, and I showed up. And
when you went back home, was it easy to get into the fashion industry?
Once you've been in that arena, it's all who you know, and now you also have an academic degree behind it. The fashion industry is very tough, period. From either the creative side or even the business side. And I wasn't ready to start my own collection. I wasn't sure I wanted to be a designer, but I definitely had the business background, and that way I could pay my rent in New York.
You're in Manhattan, which is now the fashion mecca. What was that like?
It was insane. I was a young kid. I mean, looking back, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome for a little while, and then you realize it's really hard. It's really a cold city, and not just the climate. It's just a very challenging place, and I started as an assistant buyer, and so every day I was coming into work, and I couldn't even afford some of the clothes that we were selling. So it was just a very, it was a very difficult time for me.
And also emotionally, because now you're dealing with a lot of situations which you were not trained for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they don't teach you in fashion school about
No,
that.
they don't teach you how women are with each other in the fashion industry. It's a very cutthroat industry. The output is a lot of beautiful things, but the way that it gets there is very challenging. And so,
and isn't it ironic that what is so beautiful on the outside is almost exactly the opposite on the inside? The seamy underbelly.
But there's good things too. So the irony is there on those bad parts, but there's a lot of great people.
And how did you hold on to your inner core somehow?
I didn't. I completely lost it. I got a better job at a more luxury company, and even that didn't end my misery. And so I left. I just said, I'm done. I can't handle New York. I can't handle this world. And I was interested in media. It was very obvious to me.
But you went to Paris for a short stint.
That was right after Milan. So I went to Paris, and then I went to New York.
Why the need to learn French? Yes.
It was totally me being selfish, and I didn't have a job in New York at the time. And so I had sort of like a 3-4 month window. And by then my parents were like, do whatever you want.
They can trust you out in the world.
Yes, yes. You know, and that's a great point. I had once brought it up to my dad, and I said, you give me so much freedom. Ha ha ha. And he said, well, that's because I trust you. At which point I realized I can never do anything wrong because now he trusts me. But yeah, that was very much so. But I was in Paris, then I was in Manhattan, then I was interested in media, and so I left.
So where did this interest in media come from?
It was very obvious to me when Moulin Rouge came out, the movie. As soon as that movie came out, it created a huge blockbuster, and all of a sudden, like very high-level collections, fashion collections on the runway are inspired by Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
And then the next level is inspired by this level, and then so on and so on. And it just became very clear to me, even working on the buying side, that the media dictates everything that happens in our industry. And I was just very curious about what was going on there, so I moved back to Chicago.
But one was under the impression it's actually the designers who decide on what's going to be the new collection, what is in and what is out. And
they do. But those designers get inspiration from somewhere, right? And a lot of times they get that inspiration from media, and media being the latest films that are coming out. So when The Great Gatsby comes out soon, Amitabh Bachchan is in that movie. The designs are probably going to go straight to, I think it's the 20s or whatever era it is. Those little fluffy, or not fluffy, the...
Now another moment of epiphany where you say, okay, it's not fashion now, I'm interested in media.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to call it an epiphany.
Or was it a studied kind of step towards a new field?
I think only recently is when I've done anything in a very studied, like, let's stop taking absurd risks type of manner. No, it was, I saw something, I was interested in it, and I could not stay in the place that I was emotionally, spiritually, and physically in New York. So I just wanted to leave.
So you go across the continent to LA.
Yeah, I went, yeah, exactly. So it worked out in the sense that with that decision, I was in Chicago for a little while. I started my own business, and that went okay. Taught me a lot about...
What kind of business?
It was at the time when Netflix, Play Now, and all the new media platforms were coming out online. They needed content. And I knew a lot of filmmakers who had content, but they had no distribution channels. And so my idea was maybe I can become an acquisition firm and help the two partners come together. And I had some initial successes, but I was just too early. And it was just me. I didn't have the bandwidth. But that took me to LA. So once I was in LA, suddenly I was in the heart of Hollywood. And I was working for a company where I had interaction with India quite a bit. So not only was I able to really learn more about the fashion industry, but now I was also seeing a lot about what was happening with the media industry. So I'm just gaining all this knowledge, and I could have written this book a long time ago.
You were throughout this entire period, you were making notes and kind of diarizing events and your experiences. You were doing that.
Absolutely. And
so was that with the intention to write a book, or was it...
I think it was just emotional venting. Until once I verbally vented to my parents, and my dad just said, you know, it's time to write a book. And I said, please, Dad. What a silly idea.
So how long were you in LA before the writing bug really bit you?
I got to LA in 2008. Within 6-7 months, again, that pinch of unhappiness, that pinch of dissatisfaction started, you know, scratching at me. And it finally just occurred to me that nobody's going to gift wrap a happiness package for me, you know? Like, I have to do something to change my own life. And then I remembered what my dad had said a few years earlier, and so I started writing nothing. I don't even know what I was writing. I had no plan. I had no agenda. Within a week, I had 20,000 words. Within a month, I had, like, this really huge, bloated, I don't even know what it was. It was like a novella. I have no idea. And so it was then that I realized I might have a book. So I started right away, and I was in LA for 4 years.
But did you share these ideas and whatever you'd written with friends? Or?
I did. It was quite cute, actually. I would have little book reading, really life-altering for me, because I would quietly sit and listen to them read it. They would read passages of it, so my characters were coming to life. And then I would let them discuss, and they would they were at each other's throats, said, how dare you say that about her, and she would never do that, and I can't believe that you would think, and it was just amazing to me to see that they were really becoming passionate about something that I had written.
When you started out, was it really in the format that the book is now?
No.
You were looking at things from Leela's eyes right from the beginning, or did that?
I was definitely looking at everything through Leela's eyes. I wanted it to
Right
be
from
one
the beginning?
Right from the beginning. Just because, as this is my first novel, it's an easier place to start because I am also now, you know, an NRI, and I'm able to look at everything in that perspective. So that was the starting point, and that has maintained. What has changed drastically is that the characters have become more real. In the beginning, Leela was very, you know, perfect. She was this perfect girl. She made one mistake, and that was it, you know. And now she's much more real. You know, she's much more of a human with real insecurities, with real faults, with real whatever. As are all the characters. There's no more black and white. The story has changed from night and day. From black and white, from the sun and the moon. It's gone through at least a dozen iterations, massive iterations, not just a few editing here and there. But yeah, the evolution of it has been drastic.
When you wrote the book, you were venting a lot of your emotions.
Yes.
How many of the experiences are really personal, and how many of them are vicarious?
You know, I'm not Leela, for sure. I've never been bulimic or anorexic or any of those things, but my friends have. So I've had friends who've experienced a lot of the things that have gone through here, from the drugs to the personal relationships to whatever. And my parents just raised me to be very non-judgmental. Be there as a friend, live your life with integrity. You don't have to judge whatever people are doing. You try not to hurt anybody. And so it gave me a window to everything. When your friends know you're going to take care of them, you're there for them, you're supporting them, you're not judging them. And so it's not about me. I've definitely, everything in this book I've seen firsthand. I've absolutely seen firsthand. But yeah, to answer your question, it would be both. Some of them, like, are personal friends, you know. The insecurities, absolutely, it's me, you know. I mean, who doesn't have body image issues?
We all do.
We all do, right? So that I could absolutely deal with. Personal relationships, that certainly I can deal with as well, or sympathize with, and I did. And it was really hard to write a lot of those scenes when you have to become that character and feel her pain and whatever. But a lot of the other things I definitely saw firsthand, for sure.
And what about friends? Because obviously you're talking about people whose lives you've seen, experiences you've had in terms of what you've seen your friends go through, or people you know go through. Now, have any one of those friends or acquaintances kind of reacted sharply and said, "Why did you write about me?"
My intention or agenda was not to reveal anyone. I had no one to hurt, and there's really no one that any character is inspired by. Maybe I got little pieces here or little pieces there or whatever, and so they're all jumbled.
And then also what happens is, when you're talking about this industry, there are things that happen here, the drugs, the heartbreak, as you said, body image issues. In a sense, it's a generality of the fashion industry, so it's not really specific to one person, but to each and every person who's associated with the industry. So I suppose in that sense, it's a broader view rather than a...
That's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. That's absolutely the point. There's obviously a lot of cliches in the industry, and I tried hard to stay away from them, but there are generalities that will happen. And so my friends really can't say, you said that, well, everybody, you know, it sort of falls in that bucket, so I don't know what you're talking about. But nobody, my friends are so supportive, they're so wonderful. That
when you typed in the last sentence, what was that feeling like?
I think I had been awake for about 40 hours straight, and my body was just pumping with caffeine.
Now, was this because of a deadline, or because you had so much to say?
It was because of a deadline, and I had so much to say, and there were so many changes that needed to be made that it was just a combination of everything, and the fatigue had set in, and I was so exhausted, and I was so exhilarated, and I was so done. That was truly the reaction. The next day, I remember eating a lot of ice cream and just like lying on my couch like a blob. I just remember euphoric happiness that it's done. It's finally done.
But were there moments of catharsis that, you know, as you said, this was part of the venting process for you? So when you wrote the book and those events came up, did it help you kind of get over